Yeah. Oh, is this Nen Exorcist? But I didn't think a Nen exorcism could even remove this, right? Ah, Melody! Dun and List. Tezgera, I think. But it's not another person's Nen on gone though. You can guarantee that, but what about... Hey, Goto. The family must be protected? Yeah. Loosely. Ah, he's still kind of looking out for him then. Ooh, level 5. Yeah. Outsiders. It makes sense. It's Zolotix. He's giving him a rundown, a reminder. Good guy. That shouldn't be an issue. So Gon's never going to know. Yeah. Hey, Canaria. This could be fun. Oh. How thoughtful. Whoa. Striking. That one looks like Subane. She looks like she's quite experienced. Oh, almost kind of looks like Bisky. Don't think that's enough, Kill. Sometimes that's needed. I believe it. That's right, she did say Killua-chan. Oh. The glasses? And Aluka-chama. Is he talking about Bisky as an old lady? Oh, she said her name. She'll do it. That's good though. I like that.
いいですよ。
Ooh, the sound design though. So, yeah, I was just about to say there's more requests.
これでアルカ様が他の誰かにおねだりすることはできなくなりました。
But that also kind of locks it in, doesn't it?
私次第。この意味はわかりますことね。
She's good.
もちろんお二人のおそばからは離れませんことよ。
まだあったのに。
やられた。
She's good.
大丈夫だ。まだ俺に部がある。お願いはできなくても。
Ah, official confirmation there.
怒ってる？
Oh.
大丈夫。アルカは何にも心配することないよ。俺が必ず助ける。
これはキルア様の携帯電話です。
Right. Yeah, you had to take it, right?
それは申し上げられません。それも申し上げられません。
Moral?
それを言われるなら、まずそちらが名乗るべきじゃないんですかね。はい。
Come on. Come on. Krapika? Right, her ears.
お久しぶりですね、レオリオ様。
They've met.
ゴン様救済のためです。ですが、そのためには厳しい条件
I'm so happy, man.
目が覚めてねえならもっとでかい声出しな。
Oh.
口を閉じろさんした。
Oh.
んだどこら。キルア様は命がけだ。家族の反対を押し切ってそっちへ向かってる。ゾルディック家が特別なのはてめえも知ってるだろう。この条件はこっちが頼んでるんだ。いいから黙って聞けこの野郎。
ボト。
大変失礼いたしました。
よ、久しぶり。
キルアこっちへ来たらそいつと少し話させろ。
Let me tune him up.
俺を信じて、ゴトーの言う通りにしてくれ。
わかった。変わってくれ。
変わってくれ。
モラウさんだっけ？俺が俺の携帯で俺のダチと話してんのになんであんたに変わらなきゃいけねえんだ？
答えはさっさと変われだ。
嫌だね。
Oh. It's good to have him back, man. So good.
病院の建物内はゴン様一人だけにしていただきます。
医者もダメ？
はい。
他の患者も？
はい。
I mean, as yeah, he called it. He called it.
でかい病院だ。駐車場もでかい。そ
Ah.
こにゴン専用の病室を建てる。もらうってもんだ。次からはぜひ
Of course.
誰にも見られたくないって条件
Mm.
は助念しっぽいっちゃぽい。
Ah,
キルアの言いっぷりは違ってたぜ。ハンター協会唯一の助念師が
oh, it's their own an exorcist.
ノーリスクで絶対に元に戻すと言った。いや、これ以上の詮索はやめておこうや。キルアは任せろと言った。
Wow. Yeah.
信じた仲間がそう言ったら、
Yeah, his trust.
黙って従うのが現場のルールだからな。
Yeah, they've been through quite a bit together. Yeah, he can appreciate that. He can respect moral.
キルアとの連絡はあんたに任せた。
Melody hasn't said anything.
ああ、任せろ。お前さんはどうするんだ？
どうしても一言言っておきたいやつが送ってな。
Oh. There's one glaring omission at this point. Even Melody showed up. No.
ゴンがこんな状態なのにどこで何してやがる。
It's gotta be.
絶対ね。クラピカ。
Whoa. Guys. That's a choice. Golden boy.
現在の教会に不満のある方や
Ooh, podium.
などを求めている方もおられるに違いありません。
Step up.
直談判でもこの場で演説していただいても結構です。我々は決して少数の意見をないがしろにはいたしません。
Look at this.
現にここへ座っているジンは年間両手に余る規約違反を繰り返しておりますが、
Okay.
こうして十二神のメンバーに名を連ねております。危険するくらいならば彼に一歩投じるのはいかがでしょうか。あ、笑うとこですよ。
Tough crowd. Really tough crowd.
我々会員一丸となってクリアしようじゃありませんか。
I mean, he's a good public speaker, but again, tough crowd.
どなたかご意見ご質問のある方
Okay, this should be interesting, man. The crowd.
はいそこの残す
Oh my god.
どうぞ
Jing's right there. He knows Jing's Gon's dad.
287期のレオリオだ。そこのジンって人に聞きたいことは
Oh shit.
あれがゴンの親父。
Ooh.
ゴンのところへ行ってやらねえ。あいつが今どんな状態か知ってるだろう。
Right in the open. Oh, okay. Look at this.
まずお前
Hmm.
あっちだ。
そうか世話になってるなこれからもよろしく頼む以上だ
質問に答えろよ。てか行け。
He's happy that Gon has a friend like him.
おめえみてえな仲間があいつには何人かいると聞いているそれで十分だと言っている
ふざけんじゃねえぞてめえ。ゴンがどれだけあんたに会いたがってるか分かって言ってるのか。あんたが声をかけてやればあいつは元気になるかもしれねえんだぞ。
あいつが自分から来てほしいとでも言っている
Oh. But
言える状態じゃ。
Jing, I see you. I see you.
このそやろ。
Whoa. This is quite the show. Oh my god. Go on the Oreo. He sees it.
いっぺん死ね。
本日の議会の様子はですね
That changed the mood entirely.
サイトで見ていた
I
だき
see you.
ますので
I see you.
皆様からも欠席者の方へお伝えくださいまし。てか絶対見せます。
This is. Oh man. Okay, folks, episode 140. I mean, that's kind of insane, right? In the 140s now, and only single-digit episodes left. Bittersweet, because of course, completing something of this magnitude, it's satisfying. It is, I'm not going to lie about that. I'm sure many can understand that sentiment, but also because it is about to end, right? Single digits is a really jarring feeling, especially if I go all the way back, around the time the York New City arc is playing out, right? In the 50s, and at that point, it felt like such a thing for the future to be in the 140s. But here I am, man, and listen, I've got to say, even though it's a magnificent episode for a really specific reason as well, but I think ultimately, you've got to say it belongs to the return of Leorio, right? My goodness. How entertaining is that? How lovely was that? I mean, you see that immediately bringing Leorio back in just suddenly changes the mood, the tone of the entire thing, for me at least, right? Because that's how his character is written right from the beginning of this anime, right? And again, the voice acting plays a major role. And then, of course, his personality, his really unique personality. I mean, maybe not that unique, but unique in comparison to all of these other really, fascinating and compelling individuals that are out and about, right? Especially in that building as well, in that hospital room as well. You've got Moral, you've got Melody. Lovely to see Melody, even though she didn't say much. Still, it's still a nice feeling to see her. But again, the fact that Melody is there and Kropika isn't, that's it's interesting, isn't it? Because as far as I know, or as far as I can just assume at this point, they are still together, right? The Nostrada family. Employed by the Nostrada family, though, that being said, last I saw, the Nostrada family is really quite close to going under. But I believe Kropika felt that no, he's got something. He's got something cooking, and, they'll be fine. And of course, I'll get to Kropika in a bit, because it's essentially more so of a quick, I don't know, barely even a cameo, right? Kind of is, I suppose. But, ultimately, it's a full-on return for Leorio. And, the thing is, there's just not too many characters like Leorio in this anime, in this story, right? And it's for the opposite reason. I have more than enough compelling and fascinating and mysterious and unique characters. But Leorio is just, there's that, really simple charm about Leorio, right? He is, in many ways, the audience surrogate. Yeah, I mean, there's this iconic moment that just happened. He landed an uppercut on Jing, right? And it's through his ability that's being showcased for the first time, and confirmation that indeed he has not mastered Nen, but he has learned it at this point, to the point that he's developed this ability. Really, really quite useful at that. I mean, the uppercut, I suppose it's maybe not really a callback, but, he took an uppercut himself all that time ago from Hisoka in the Hunter exam. So yeah, it's an iconic moment. But yeah, Leorio, he just immediately brings so much levity to the situation, just makes the whole thing so much more fun to have him around. I just feel that he immediately lights up the scenes with his brand of boisterous charm, right? Unapologetically himself. He's a straight shooter, he's as loyal as they come, and there's no hidden agendas. I mean, he certainly is a heart on his sleeve type of guy, right? And sometimes, yes, he can act first and think later. But that's, again, part of his charm, I believe, right? And it makes for a lot of fun moments. You think of him in Goto, you think of him in Moro. But, the crazy thing is, Leorio might have just made a lot of new fans, right? Within the narrative of this anime, of this arc. Because that incident got the crowd going. And you see immediately, I believe it's the bunny, right? She's speaking of, oh, yeah, tell everyone else. It's going to be online. I mean, Leorio's about to be really popular all of a sudden. Right, he really got that crowd going, and they made it a point to specify and really show us that this crowd is really kind of out of it. They're not able to relate to someone like Pariston, or perhaps many of them that are on the stage. Certainly not Pariston, right? But then a man of the people comes in, someone like Leorio. Again, no hidden agendas. He's not politicking. He's just being himself, straight shooter. A lot of these people can relate. Right? And you see, they reacted to him. You could see that this crowd really enjoyed that someone took that approach with some of these people on stage, especially Jing, I suppose. He certainly has a bit of a reputation in the community. But, beyond Jing, just, these Zodiacs on the stage and Pariston and all of that, they all represent the same thing, perhaps, as a whole, to some of these people in the audience. And for them, one of them, essentially, in Leorio, just kind of lit up the stage or lit up the room. Right? And it got them excited again. And that right there is the reason I believe, or I mean, the whole situation as it played out, it's the reason I believe that Jing actually immediately understood the situation and he let it play out. And of course, he let that punch land on him. He saw it coming. You could see it in real time, right? You see Jing actually react to it. He looks at it, this portal that showed up right beneath him. Again, Leorio's ability and all of that. So he punched the podium. That's the actual punch. And the punch itself kind of carries through that portal, right? And yeah, it's quite the punch. Listen, Jing, you can look at it from a few different angles, right? Of course, Jing, maybe deep down inside, or maybe not even deep down inside. Maybe he thought, yeah, maybe I kind of deserve this, right? Maybe. But I really truly believe that Jing let it play out in that manner because he understood that this is getting the crowd going, or it could get the crowd going, and he's spot on. And ultimately, because it is uploaded online, it is going to spread like wildfire. It is, right? So that's how you build excitement. Jing understood that almost immediately, and I'm pretty sure someone like Pariston also understood Jing's approach, or at the least, he certainly understands that Jing is, letting this play out by choice, or he's handling this, especially some of his specific responses. It's all by design. It really is, because at one point, you could tell that Jing has a read on Leorio, and the first thing he asked is, how exactly are you related to Gon? And the moment he learned that indeed this is one of his friends, one of his buddies, he immediately you could see, he just feels that this is good, that Gon has these kind of people around him. Though, that being said, it appears that he certainly keeps track of Gon and his surroundings and the people that are kind of, around him, essentially, right? Even perhaps throughout his journey. You see, this episode as a whole is a bit of a, I don't know, celebration of the series a bit, perhaps a celebration of the journey that Gon has been on, right? You see all of the different arcs kind of showcased through this collection of characters, right? Really unique characters coming together and brought together by Gon, right? The journey that Gon's been on, the people he's come across, be it friends, be it, competitors or, rivals at one point. You look at someone like Hanzo, and then, of course, you look at mentors. There's plenty of those. I saw Tezagera, I saw Gorenyu, I saw Bisky, Melody, List, and Dun. Hanzo, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, all of them are there for Gon, right? And I think, in that one shot of them, trying to, just cheer him on and, try to wake him up, just essentially be there for him. You see the entire anime, I think, represented in that one shot. For me, at least, that's how I really felt in that moment. And I think Jing understands that. He knows that, right? All of these people are out here for Gon, right? They care about him that much that, he's had this kind of impact on them, negative or positive, but he's had his run-ins with a lot of these really impressive people, right? To the point that they actually care enough to come and see Gon, right? Yes, a lot of them are here anyways. I'm still not sure how close the Hunter HQ is to that national hospital, but I'm guessing it's probably close enough. But, I'm not saying they're only here because of that, due to proximity. Many of them, I'm sure, the majority of them are there out of choice. They made the trip to go see Gon. I mean, yes, of course it can be cliche at times, but, this depiction of the friends that he made along the way, it's just so satisfying. It's so wholesome. It's so fulfilling. And again, I thought it's incredibly satisfying to see the bonds that have been created, throughout these 148 episodes being displayed in this manner. But, that being said, many of them, or perhaps even the majority of them, are probably not that surprised by this, that Gon ultimately got to that point, that he got himself in this situation, right? Many of them are really quite experienced, and many of them had these concerns, or maybe not concerns, just, they read Gon all that time ago, throughout their own run-ins, be it on Great Island, be it in the Hunter exam, Rescue Killua arc, York New City, and, and beyond, and Chimera Ant arc as well, and, the different, segments of that arc. Many of them understood, Gon is capable of something like this. And, unfortunately, I suppose, for many of them, they see it in front of them now that he was capable of pushing himself to that point and beyond that point. But again, just because many of them maybe saw something like this coming, something on the horizon, essentially, doesn't mean it's not sad for them, right? And at this point, essentially Gon has been on this incredible journey. And he has met all of these incredible people. And ultimately, I'm sure Jing loves that for Gon, right? Surely he loves that for Gon. And, I've spoken of Jing's really unique approach to all of this. And, again, setting up stuff like, Jing Island. that kind of makes sense as well. But Greed Island and, again, after Greed Island, the two options, one bringing him to himself, and the other taking him and his friend, if there is a friend that comes along, to Kite. So I'd say at this point, Jing probably feels content with, Gon's trajectory and all of that. Yeah, maybe not his current situation, but again, it appears that he's still so sure, incredibly sure, that Gon is going to come out of this just fine, perhaps. Listen, ultimately, he cannot be the same Gon that he used to be. That simply, I'm not going to say it can't be allowed, but he has to come out the other side a different person, right? Not completely different, but there has to be some change about Gon. I can't see him going back to the person he used to be, right? Nor do I want him to be the person that he used to be, right? Not entirely, but some things have to be left behind, But that's my expectation of this, because at this point, they're making it really quite clear, be it through the setup from Killua's side and Aluka and all of that, and be it through Jing. Gon is expected to be revived, essentially, right? To be saved. And this is something that their own Nen Exorcist couldn't even fathom, right? She walks in and she sees that this is beyond her capacity, her capabilities, and even others perhaps. But the thing is, the reason I didn't even speculate about Nen exorcism is because I didn't think it applies here. Because I just assumed that, since it's not a third party's Nen that is acting as like a foreign Nen that's a part of someone else's buildup, you take someone like Uvogin as an example, you take someone like Krollo as an example, right? Those two really can use an exorcist, not Uvogin, of course, but Krollo, right? That makes sense because it's a foreign Nen. But here it's Gon's own covenant and restrictions and all of that, with himself. So yeah, from the beginning I didn't really even think that could be a solution. But in the story itself, you can understand how these characters might want to try it out, right? You've got to try everything, and they don't even know. It's such a unique thing that Gon's done here, right? Because it's just unthinkable. It's unique because it's unthinkable, and only someone like Gon, in that really unstable state of mind, came up with this abomination of a contract, essentially. And I think it's plain to see in her reaction, isn't it? The Nen Exorcist, the Hunter Association's own Nen Exorcist at that. I mean, you see in her face and her reaction, slowly just inching back, and she just wants to get out of there. That's how much it disturbed her, right? And I'm sure she's seen some things in her lifetime as a Nen Exorcist, right? But this is something else. This is, again, abomination. But, ultimately all roads lead to Killua and Aluka, right? That angle. It's got to be that. It's got to be that. And, there's some really fantastic moments for that part of this arc as well, right? Killua and the Zoldyck side of things. Because, hell, there's even more new faces showing up here, right? Subane and, goddammit, Amane. Yeah, Subane and Amane. I got really concerned almost immediately for Amane because she said her name, right, to Canaria out loud. So I thought, okay. The other might immediately kind of, use that name now and make a request. Now, yeah, the other did kick in immediately with a request, but it's of Subane, right? Who complies almost immediately, who fulfills that request rather immediately, but also, really quite clever. And hell, she probably actually wanted it to play out like that and expected it to play out like that, right? So, she can fulfill the request and then kind of essentially put it on hold, right? Because she got out of there. So, of course, the other cannot request again or make another request. So everything's on hold. And, who's got it in their hands? It's Subane, right? And she even gives Killua a bit of a warning as she departs or kind of just disappears at that point. So yeah, she's good. She's good. I mean, one thing that is really quite clear is that this is someone that's quite respected, even by, people like Silva and Zeno and, Killua's mom, right? This is someone that's quite experienced. I'm sure, this is someone that's probably been in the family, for a long, long time. Perhaps she was even there for Silva as a youngster. Maybe, maybe aging her a bit too much, but you never know in this anime. And you could just see all of that through her approach of Killua, right? And again, in the reactions of Goto, who's another one that's been around for a long time, clearly, but clearly not as long as that. To the point that, this lady, Subane, she's a bit of a legend there, perhaps a bit of a cult figure that's always been around, right? I mean, she certainly has a reputation. And she tells Killua as much, I'm not as lenient as your father or Goto, right? That's kind of crazy. Though, to be fair, Silva actually is quite lenient, isn't he? In the grand scheme of things, he is quite lenient with Killua. Even this, punishment, it's not, I mean, at most, Killua is going to be brought back home, right? And yes, that means he can't really help Gon anymore, but I feel like it's still quite lenient. It's not that harsh of a punishment. But, to someone like Killua, not being able to help Gon, especially in this state, is more of a punishment than actually, being in a dungeon, getting electrocuted, right? That's like child's play for someone like Killua and many of the other Zoldyck siblings. But, once again, through that segment and many of these other segments, in this episode specifically, the incredible collection of characters coming together, it just reminds me of the staggering achievement of this, the world of this anime rather, by Togashi, right? And the incredible ensemble cast. I mean, listen, man, ultimately, I think one of the strongest signs of a well-written, sprawling narrative that has, these incredible cast dynamics is that it truly feels realistic, that if needed, that it easily could spin off into multiple different spin-offs, that it is believable, that you really can dedicate an entire story to just one element, to an entire, subplot, right? And, for example, the Zoldycks. Listen, if there's a spin-off of the Zoldycks, all of us are watching that, 100%, because there's more than enough there for it to be like a really fun and, just exciting series on its own, right? I'm not saying it has to be done, but I'm saying, just the fact that the possibility is there, right? That right there, that's enough, right? You look at the Phantom Troop. Remember, I used to say, in a heartbeat, if there's a full-on anime or full-on story about them, even in manga format, I'll be there. I'd be there in a heartbeat, right? And then, of course, now you look at the Hunter Association, and, you've got characters like Pariston, right? The Golden Boy, and all of those dynamics. I mean, just recently I got an entire new cast of characters in the Zodiacs. Now, listen, I'll be honest. The Zodiacs, perhaps it's because of the lack of screen time. It's only been a couple of episodes, maybe I think 4 episodes at this point. I can't say I've taken to any of the Zodiacs specifically, and I'm not including Jing in that. Of course, I've taken a Jing. I took to Jing a long time ago. I'm speaking of the other 10, right? Of course, I took to Pariston. But, even there, I feel like he's not getting enough screen time at this point, and I'm really hoping for an episode that's kind of dedicated just to the election, or it has a bit more time devoted just to that, so I can get more of those cast dynamics, those character dynamics of that group, right? And Pariston kind of gets to flex a bit more, that I do get to see a bit more of Pariston in his element, because getting to see Pariston in his element, it's a treat, and I got that, a couple of episodes ago, around the time all of them got together in that boardroom, and I hope I get more of that, because, I'd say he's taken a bit of a backseat alongside some of the other characters from the Zodiacs as well. But, I can't say there's too many that stand out all that much. There's interesting, stuff there for the Zodiacs, but there's not enough there yet for me to say, oh, I really, really like this Zodiac, or I don't care all that much for that Zodiac. There's just not enough there yet for me to take to any of them in that capacity, right? Certainly, in comparison to people like, again, Jing or Pariston or many of the established characters. But, going back to my initial point, that's essentially some of the highest praise I can give to Togashi, right? And my experience of this anime and this story, right? How lived in it feels, how authentic all of the subplots and the characters within those subplots feel, right? That they easily could just spin off into their own thing. But also, as I am on the topic of, spin-offs and all that good stuff, the quick cameo of Kurapika, right? Yes, he's ignoring the calls. He's not taking those calls. He's had multiple calls, clearly. And, of course, he knew Melody is going to go see Gon if they are actually together around that time as well. Unless, again, it's been a long time. A lot has happened off screen, I suppose, even for Leorio, right? I mean, Leorio has developed quite a bit, right? And I'm sure, he's made some ground in, achieving his goal as well, his profession as a doctor, his goals, he's got a lot of goals. And I think, his ability here, you could probably see a lot of applications for his chosen profession, right? I'll get into that in a bit. But, sticking to Kurapika in that moment, that really quick cameo, it's a really cool look at Kurapika after a long time, right? I mean, he's quite dialed in to something else, right? He's preoccupied with something else. He's clearly just not even paying attention to any of these missed calls. He knows he's getting those calls. He's just not reacting to it at all. And it looked like he's in some kind of dark chamber, right? That's one of the things I noticed first. Again, he's in a suit. That's quite a look for Kurapika. I know how he usually dresses, but is this his new look, right? Again, he is, a professional, I suppose. So maybe, from time to time he does feel that, okay, yeah, I can rock the suit, for the gig. But yeah, he looked like he's sitting in a chamber and his eyes are red. So to me, it felt like he's probably maybe in the middle of an interrogation or something, right? If you look at his posture as well, and then again, the eyes, I know all about the eyes and how they light up red, right, under really specific conditions or under really specific situations, rather, emotional headspace and all of that. So it's possible that it is, a clan related, right? And I'm speaking of his clan, not the Phantom Troop and all of that. So yeah, ultimately, it is a choice, right? To Kurapika at that moment in time, or at this moment in time, this is more important. So yeah, it's pretty clear that Kurapika is still quite locked in. He is on that crusade, and he still is consumed by that thirst for retribution. And essentially, I knew as much back in the York New City arc, right? He claimed that, he's going to hunt down all of those eyes and the people that bought them, right? So, yeah, I think it is possible that maybe he is interrogating someone at the moment, someone who maybe did buy the eyes or has a connection to someone who bought the eyes. At the end of the day, it's something that gets those red eyes going. And again, it looked like a dark chamber, right? Though it also could be some kind of, I don't know, space just for him in these moments. But let's return to Jing and Leorio and that whole thing, that whole situation, that whole incident that happened, right? And, like I said a little bit earlier, I do believe it's by design, it's by choice that Jing kind of lets it play out. And he kind of even gives Leorio that final push after he is able to read the character of Leorio and the situation at hand almost immediately, right? I'm sure Periston is impressed as well. Because of course, I'm just going to go ahead and assume, like I said earlier, that Periston understands exactly what Jing is doing here. And the result is clear almost immediately. There's immediate payoff in the reaction of the crowd, right? So I think, and listen, maybe it turns out that I'm giving Jing too much credit, but this is based on everything I've learned about Jing up until this point. But, I think based on Jing's reading of Leorio, and, Leorio almost immediately gives you more than enough to gauge him as an individual and the things he believes in and, just how much friendship means to him, right? I think Jing gauged all of that, and he essentially makes a calculated move from that point on, in my opinion, right? To see if there can be a reaction like this. And would you look at that? All of a sudden, the mood has changed entirely from earlier, right? Like I said, tough crowd. Periston found out as well. And now it's a completely different mood in there. You've got essentially a crowd favorite. And that brings me to my next point. Listen, it's not even that far-fetched that Leorio might actually find himself just all of a sudden becoming one of the contenders, right? He just won over a lot of people in that crowd. A lot of them. And this is one of the reasons I felt that Jing is letting it play out like this. He let the punch play out. He let the whole thing play out, right? And it got that reaction. So imagine all of a sudden Leorio shoots up in the ranks or something. And I think a few episodes ago I even kind of speculated about this kind of thing, right? In these types of setups. There's always the unknowns or the randoms, the wild cards, essentially. Leorio could be that. He could be that. Especially because, Togashi chooses to double down and tell us about this going online, right? So other hunters who didn't show up are going to see this, right? And, I'm sure that soon enough, because of all of this, it is going to reach 95% participation, right? I think that's just all according to plan, I'd say, right? And again, I think Periston sees that as well. And, this just it injected new life into the election. It really did. And I'm sure, people like Cheadle and some of the other Zodiacs, right? Some of the thinkers, essentially, they probably also understand it, right? But, I'm not saying that's the only reason here. Let's look at it from Leorio's perspective. He legitimately just couldn't take it anymore. He felt that, okay, this is too much. It's far too much now. I've got to tune this guy up. I owe him at least one punch for Gon, right? Because of, the treatment and all of that. But, of course, ultimately, Leorio is really quite passionate and loyal and emotional. And, he's not afraid to showcase all of that, right? All of that resonated with all of these people in the crowd. And again, I'm guessing, beyond the crowd as well, because it is going to be online. So from his perspective, it's too much that Jing is speaking in this manner, right? In response to his questions about not going to see his own son. Right? And then trying to remind him, do you know how much he wants to see you and all of that? Gon, on the other hand, right? I mean, of course, he can't say anything at the moment, but, of course, Gon would be upset if that's how him and Jing actually met for the first time in a long time, right? Instead of Gon getting to continue his, journey, his hunt for Jing. And, I think Jing is certainly expecting that journey to continue or that hunt to continue, right? So if Gon is to come back, I'm going to go ahead and assume that Jing is going to be gone, right? He's not going to be there anymore in the area. But again, that kind of it kind of depends on the election, doesn't it? Because I'm guessing some of these things might require him to still stick around. So let's see how that could potentially play out. Let's cross that bridge once or if it gets there, right? And a few episodes ago, I spoke of a film called Conclave. Actually, no, I'll leave it at that. But I'm smiling at the moment because of the things that have played out here. But man, Leorio, just imagine, I'm just smiling thinking about it, him becoming a contender, essentially, right? Because I'm so sure that, he is going to get some backing. And listen, I'm not saying, he's about to just shoot to the top and, overtake Pearson or anything, but I think he'll shoot up high enough, right? That he'll be like, hold on. He'll be surprised by it as well, I think, right? Because I've seen a lot of really interesting names on that list that they've shown me a few times now, right? So I can easily see Leorio gaining a lot of backing here, right? But also, I think someone like Moral has showcased, once again, even though, he's not trying to showcase it, I'm just saying through his approach, be it here or be it back in the Chimera Ant arc, I think right there is one of your ideal contenders for the chairman's position. I mean, he's not one of the favorites, given the numbers and all of that, but me as an audience member, yeah, I could see Moral. I could easily see Moral taking over, right? Now, is it likely? I don't think so, right? I don't think so, but I truly believe that there is an unlikely contender all of a sudden in Leorio, and Jing saw that. He saw that. And he let it play out to its natural conclusion, and that's getting rocked by his punch, right? And then, of course, the punch itself, right? It's a big deal. Right? It's in front of his peers. It's in front of, these other Zodiacs. And, that's one of the things that I think Jing is mindful of as well, that Pearson is around. He's right there. You see, even in the staging of it, he's sitting right, over his shoulder behind him. Again, in terms of visual storytelling and all of that. The golden boy in his sparkly best, right? His golden suit. But going back to Leorio's uppercut, his perfect uppercut at that, and the ability he actually uses to execute the strike, this is how you showcase it, right? This is just a perfect staging for it, isn't it? To bring Leorio back in after a long time. And like I said already earlier, it kind of belonged to Leorio a lot of this episode. But to showcase his ability in this capacity for the first time, it's a masterstroke. It really is. Yeah, like I said, I'm sure there are unique and interesting applications to be considered, right? Given the profession that he's trying to be in, training to be in. And I'm sure he's made a lot of progress at this point, right? And ultimately, it always goes back to his, drive behind all of this. One of his buddies, his childhood buddies needing an operation, but it's simply a matter of money, right? That's all it was. He just couldn't afford it. So I'm sure that he's developed his ability for, something that is going to be useful in that profession, right? That's going to assist him quite a bit in that profession. And again, given the fact that Leorio is in that profession, or at least training to be in that profession, this must be tough for him. It was tough for him, right? To see Gon in this position, in the state rather. And again, you see his reaction to the request or the conditions of Goto that, that no one else can be around, right, in the hospital. And I thought the voice acting there is just hilarious. I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but, the delivery there, right, as Leorio said, all the patients and all the doctors, just the delivery is immaculate, right, really quite funny. And of course, understandably so, he freaks out. Because he understands there's a lot of people here. It's a national hospital, and he understands from the perspective of a doctor. But of course, Moral had an idea that just immediately solves that issue. You don't move everyone else out of there. You just move Gon out of there, right? You make a temporary room, right? I'm sure, they'll do their best to secure it. And yeah, like I said earlier, Moral had his run-in with Leorio as well. So if indeed it goes down that path and Leorio just finds himself just in the middle of all of this, all of a sudden, just gaining a lot of backing, I'm sure Moral might not be against it either. Because you can see that Moral could also understand, and he could tell that Leorio is the type of person, someone who fights for his friends, right? Extremely loyal, respects loyalty and trust and all of that. And you see that the things Moral had to say to Nav actually resonated quite a bit with Leorio as well. And he immediately just kind of gained Leorio's trust. But going back to the Zoldyck segment, Killua actually gives us a confirmation at this point, right? That indeed he can command the other. Because at that point, he also understood Subane's approach, right? That, now Killua is not able to make a wish. But then also that right there is another confirmation, because if he was expecting to make a wish, right, or saying now that he can't make it anymore, that means the one from the last episode does not count or did not count as a wish, and he was giving a command, right? That wasn't like an official, wish or anything. So, that's a game changer here. So he thinks he could still do that, right? And, the major implication of that is, if indeed he can just do that, then, there is no aftermath, there is no risk, right? Could it just be that simple? Could it? I don't know. Let's see. So if I am understanding this correctly, and I think I am, I think for the most part, I think this request that was made of the fingernail of Subane, who gives it up immediately, of course, and like I said, probably actually wanted it to play out like this, that is actually, after the first one, the first request, official request after Miluki got his computer. Even though, again, all of them, Killua's mom, Miluki, and Silva thought that those are the actual requests, but ultimately it's just playtime, right? In the last episode. And Killua essentially kind of gave us as much as well, right? He immediately said, okay, they don't know many of these rules that only I know. And of course, to tie up that loose end, or to finish up that point, the idea of the wish, the reason I'm speaking of that is because, they specified and confirmed that the same person cannot make a wish twice, or, back to back, 2 in a row, essentially. But yeah, I've got to say, Subane, I just love the level of intimidation and level of respect that she commands, right? And this is not, to me, it didn't really feel like it's out of some kind of Nen ability or anything. This is just a different type of respect being afforded to her. And, that built-in intimidation that Killua feels, yeah, that's real. That's legitimate. You see Killua immediately just kind of agrees to everything. He falls in line. And, the funny thing is, at one point, during the episode itself, I was about to say, who the hell can bring Killua in, as they're going through all the restrictions, or, the alert level 4 and 5 and all of that. And then, almost immediately, I get my answer. It's someone like Subane, right? And Silva, of course, he understood he might need to send someone like that, right? Instead of Goto. Goto and Kanaria come along as well. But yeah, Silva knew that, okay, I'm going to need someone like Subane for something like this, if Killua really truly needs to be brought in. But yeah, I think that should do it for this one, folks. If you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you are interested in early access or timer-based full length or even full opacity, consider checking out the Patreon page and potentially supporting the channel as well in the process. The links are in the description and the pinned comment, also links to social media. Right then, thank you so much for joining me, folks, and thank you for your time, because time is precious. It really is. And I do hope to see you again soon for episode 141. Until then, take it easy.